sets. I'm trying. Yeah, chop garlic. Who are the ushers? Who are the ushers? It's open alone.
Where are you? Please, you're one of the ushers. welcome. Okay. Please, and everybody is very important. Please, you are highly welcome. I'm about to start. I want to welcome Chairman of MBA Enugu branch, Servicio. You're welcome. Please, if I don't mention your name, if you are important, please, you're all welcome. Welcome everybody. Thank you very much. DJ, continue with your song.
Let me continue to sweet me forward.
Please wait wherever you are. Welcome. Mrs. Nkiru Mwambweze, the former Vice Chair of MBA Young Branch. Welcome, ma'am. Mrs. Sylvia Abana, former Chairperson of FIDA. You're welcome. Wave your hand wherever you are. Mrs. Nena Nose, Our Excellency, you're welcome. Barrister Alamwa, you're welcome, sir. Barrister Ngozi Caroline Amba, you are highly welcome. Where are you? Wave your hand wherever you are. You're welcome, ma'am. Barrister Sonny Onyuke, welcome, sir. Barrister Val Atukuru, you're welcome. Please, we'll be holding on for a short while for the chairman to come in. Thank you very much. DJ, please help us with the first answer of the national anthem. If you don't have it, you can recite it the way we know. DJ, are you there? Yeah, please, let's recite it like it doesn't have it in the system. The national anthem. Nigeria, we love you. Our own native land. Don't try and don't let it fight. In brotherhood we stand. Nigerians know I'm proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle, honor and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Thank you very much for that. The next item we'll have on our agenda is the introduction of the chairman. The chairman is the president of the Conference Court of Appeal, Justice G.C. Lamad, GCFR, Fellow, Institute of Chartered Mediators and Prosecutor. Please, a round of applause for the chairman. And the chief host for this event is the Honorable Attorney General / Justice of Enugu State, who is ably represented by Mrs. Uzamaka Okej, a director in the Ministry of Justice. Please, a round of applause for her. And also recognize the presence of all guests in our midst here. You're all welcome. At this point, I'm calling on the chairperson of this organization, Mrs. Ngozi Eyisiobe Abafo, to come and give us our opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Our chairman, the Honorable President of the Customary Court of Appeal, Honorable Justice D.C. Amani, the Honorable Attorney General, Commissioner for Justice, ably represented by Mrs. Uzamaka Keji, our distinguished senior advocates of Nigeria here present, members of FIDA, members of the bench and bar, members of the Nigerian Women Forum, Enugu State, our invited guests, partners in justice sectors, colleagues, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my utmost honor and privilege on behalf of the African Women Lawyers Enugu State branch to warmly welcome you all to this lecture, themed Digital Technology in the Courtroom, with a focus on the topic leveraging forensic techniques, autopsy and electronic evidence for violence against persons with equestrian law. This seminar comes at a crucial time when technology is rapidly reshaping the legal and judicial landscape in Nigeria and across the world. As women lawyers committed to justice, equity, and the rule of law, OLA recognizes the growing need to understand and embrace the intersection between law, technology, and forensic science to improve justice delivery. The theme of this lecture speaks directly to the realities of modern legal practice. Every day, our justice institutions face new challenges in handling crimes, especially gender-based violence cases. In such matters, the meticulous use of digital technology, forensic techniques like autopsy and electronic evidence can spell the difference between justice achieved and justice denied. By leveraging these forensic and digital tools, we stand to strengthen the evidence-sharing process, enhance accountability, and promote transparency within the courtroom while ensuring that survivors of violence find both voice and vindication under the Violence Against Persons Law and the criminal justice system. As these opportunities appear, we are confronted by some questions, such as how can our judicial officers, law enforcement agencies, prosecutors adopt these technologies within the confines of due process and human rights? How can the justice system respond swiftly to technological change without compromising fairness? How do we ensure these forensic techniques meet legal, ethical, and practical demands of modern courtroom advocacy in a legal system grounded in traditional procedure? And most importantly, how do we ensure these tools serve justice and not merely procedure? The answers lie in collaboration, capacity building, continued dialogue, precisely what today's lecture seeks to achieve. This platform brings together key justice stakeholders, such as the bench, the bar, law enforcement, forensic experts, and civil society in a collective pursuit of innovation that strengthens justice for all. As we look forward to today's lecture, permit me to sincerely appreciate our distinguished chairman of the occasion, the Honorable President of the Customary Court of Appeal, for graciously accepting to lead us today. I also wish to thank our invited speaker, Dr. Prof. Iwebike Victor Onyora, and the discussants. We expect profound gratitude. Your insights will undoubtedly shape policy and practice in the effective implementation of our law in Enugu State. As we deliberate today, let us remember that technology is ultimately a tool, one that should serve the higher ideals of truth, justice, and human dignity. Our goal, therefore, is not technology for technology's sake, but technology to serve in the service of justice, fairness, and compassion. Let us envision a justice system that embraces innovation, where investigations are evidence-based, prosecutions are precise, and judgments are anchored on verifiable truths, all to protect the vulnerable and uphold the sanctity of human life. In closing, I encourage every participant to engage actively, learn openly, and collaborate purposefully. The lessons shared here today will go a long way in strengthening not only our institution, but also our collective ability to deliver justice effectively and inclusively. On behalf of the African Women Lawyers Association, Enugu State Branch, I once again thank all our guests, partners, and dignitaries for honoring our invitation, supporting this important cause. May today's deliberation be insightful, productive, and impactful for the advancement of justice in Enugu State and Nigeria. Thank you.
A round of applause for our state coordinator. This is seriously being so powerful. The importance of digital technology cannot be overemphasized in our state now. In every way. We need it in everything that we do. Thank you very much, the state coordinator. At this point, I'll be calling on the chairman of this occasion, His Lordship, Honorable Justice G.C. Namani, to give us his opening remarks. You know, you're welcome.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Let me stand on the protocol and be established. Let me start as a critic. First of all, we don't take the three stanzas of the national anthem except on national days. Maybe independence, the celebration, maybe when the president wants to address the nation or the democracy day, things like that. We just read the first stanza and feel discharged. Secondly, if you read Macbeth by William Shakespeare, Macbeth was returning from war with his colleague, a fellow general, Banquo, and then somebody addressed him as the Thane of Cawdor. He said, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? And the program I saw, but then I saw FICMC. I don't have that. So who dressed me in borrowed robes? I welcome all of you to this very important occasion. In the last 10 years, women have taken over the nation's judiciary, happily too. Why women are not yet at the helm of affairs of the bar, it is right to say that they have also arrived on the bar scene. So, I'm not surprised that local, states, municipal, international legislations are reflecting the rights of women and children. If our different judgments, of course, are going in that direction, it's a good thing. So when we say we are here today for lecture with the theme digital technology in the courtroom, we know what to expect. We have come to the digital age. You slap your wife in the secrecy of your bedroom, and it goes viral. Because maybe the little child said it, just videoed you. And then when that video, if that case goes to court, what will happen to that video that that little boy made viral about the unlawful slapping of his mother by his father? I think we have come to a point where whatever we do, become very careful side respect. Because the person shaking your hand and be having a pen in his pocket recording the handshake. Well, let me not go into anything. Welcome you to this. We want to salute all our African Railway Association for what they're doing today. We do hope more of this will come. Thank you very much. Let us keep our ears, open our eyes wide open to enjoy what you have on your menu. Thank you very much.
Round of applause for the chairman of the nation. Lot, thank you so much. I would like to recognize the presence of some dignitaries that just walked in now. Mrs. Oyinkosola Balejo Okusaya, SAN. Maya, welcome. Barrister Mrs. Antonia Ejenike, representing the Director of Public Prosecution, Ministry of Justice. Maya, welcome. Barrister Mrs. Eze Ogageni, the former Vice Chair of the Super Branch. Maya, welcome. Please, you're welcome. League of Women Voters of Nigeria, Enugu State. Wherever you are, please, you're welcome. At this stage, I'll be reading the slide. So sorry, I want to recognize the presence of Chief Ada Chika Ukeria Udobi. You're welcome. You're welcome. Please, at this point, I'll be reading out the citation of the each presenter, Professor Victor Igwebike Onyora. Professor Igwebike Victor Onyora is a distinguished art academic and practitioner serving as a professor of anatomy, pathology, and forensic physician at Nnamdi University and is affiliated teaching hospital. His educational background is extensive and multidisciplinary, beginning with his undergraduate medical training at the University of Calabar. He holds a Master of Science in Pharmacology, a Master of Forensic Medicine, M&M, and a Master of Public Administration, MBA, with a specialized focus on human resource development and management. He is also a fellow of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Pathologists. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Professor Onyora has established himself as a leading authority in forensic sciences within Nigeria and beyond. Since 1998, he has conducted over 5,000 autopsies, ranging from routine clinical cases to complex medical legal investigations. His expertise was further refined through advanced training at Monash University and the Victorian Institute of Forensic Medicine in Melbourne, Australia. This international exposure equipped him with specialized skills in forensic pathology, clinical forensic medicine, and investigation of physical and sexual assaults, including non-accidental injuries in children. Professor Onyora's professional journey is rooted in commitment to institutional development and public service. Following his undergraduate studies, he served his National Youth Service in Lagos, where he demonstrated early leadership by authorizing the organization's comprehensive medical policy. His clinical foundation was further solidified through years of surgery, supervised practice at General Hospital and Patterson Specialist Hospital and Maternity in Lagos, before he was transitioned into specialized postgraduate training in anatomy administrative positions that have shaped the academic landscape of this institution. The professor has held a diverse array of high-level administrative positions that have shaped the academic landscape of his institution. He has served with distinction as the head of department, director of international collaboration and linkages, and dean of the Faculty of Medicine. His leadership extended to the broader medical committee through his roles on the board of management for the Unam Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital, and his current service as a vital member of Unam University Government Council. I can go on and on, but because of time, we have to shorten it. Professor, you are highly welcome. Please.
Good morning, my chairman. I am once very good at protocol, but let me just remind on the existing protocol. But at this stage, at least I want to say good morning to the president of customary courts of Enugu State, the judges and magistrates here present, sons. The Commissioner for Justice, also the MBA chairman in Enugu State. Please forgive my error protocol. Let's just go straight to what we have this morning. Thank God today I am here on a friendly note, because all the time I face the magistrates and the judges, they actually put it to me and they put me at the, what's it called, witness box. But today I think I found where I am today. So the topic today is deep regional forensic techniques and detox into legal, ethical and practical demands of modern court. Focus on law. The forensics is actually here to serve the judicial system, to serve the court. We are messengers of the court. We are not the advocates. That's why when I work with the police come to one of the case, I remind them, do you remember that we are messengers of the system? We don't want the case. And we're not advocates either. We're there as unbiased servants, delivering service, expert service to the judicial system. Why we want to talk about it 110 times? Let's start from where we began. Forensic science actually is the application of knowledge of science to law. Those skilled to science, but again, it is not law, it is science and law. Okay? So the Latin word forensics, of course, we all know, is actually from the word forum. And forum, in ancient time, ancient Latin time, is actually the marketplace of the public. And you will understand that in every community, for you to adjudicate a case, you don't just serve justice, you also want to show that justice is served. So even in Ebola, justice is served in the marketplace. That is why people now will tell you, if you call me a thief when the market is full, when you find out about a thief, please wait until the market is full before you tell them that I'm no longer a thief. Okay? So the justice, and in most cultures, especially those that can afford, they operate a jury system. We are not just the bench and the bar that are there. We have the lady who are actually at the jury supporting the bench. So that it is not just that the judge serves justice. They want to know that the jury, which is representative of the public, also agrees on the judgment. And it will be such that a common man will understand. I think I want to approach this. If you check ancient times, okay, even in Italian times, you find out that they have amicus curiae. These are friends of the court, and they are in various fields: doctors, scientists, engineers. If you remember during history, at the time we are in, one of the ancient countries there, nations there, if a building falls, the engineer that built that building will go to the gallows. Before it goes to the levels, we want to be sure that it's not, intentional. It should be also sure that it's actually lack of skill or probably man-engineering that actually fell the building before you now complete something and send the person to the others. If you remember, if you read Julius Caesar, you remember that Julius Caesar was actually a cure against Jesus, and Jesus was killed. But for all these times, somebody was able to say, whether correctly or wrong, that the fatal injury was the one on the chest. That is to say, that's the best that we did. There was a attempt, and there was a greatest of the murder. So that's actually, even though he's not a doctor, he's not a scientist, but actually that is actually expert opinion that is trying to. In Bologna was actually where you have the first, where it was actually organized, and then scientists and doctors were appointed to the court to serve the court. Okay? Then the earliest modern trial was in Sumeria. In Chinese book was the first to document autopsies that have been performed. Not that it hasn't been performed before, but that it actually put it on paper. Then Britain eventually, Britain was even though it looks like nation civilization, came after the rest, came after the even Egypt. So they started their system. Please go back. They started their system actually organized the corona system, and they appointed the corona. Corona then was actually a big plea for the crown. Remember in medieval UK that the king owns every property, including humans. So when somebody dies, the corona is the one that administers the person's property estate. And also criminals forfeit their property to the estate. But again, before someone has to be certified dead before the person's property is what? Is being administered. So eventually corruption entered the corona system, where coroners will organize murder and make sure so that, especially for rich people, so that their estate will be shared. Of course, they take their children, they always take their portions. That was when the public began to riot, and then they now begin to organize the system better and appointed scientists and doctors to the corona office. Okay? So that they'll be sure that the death was actually there. That's actually where examination of the death began. Otherwise, they were doing just a social examination, look like this thing, and then they would now find a diagnosis of death. And it is actually the UK corona law that we adopted. Okay? And that was actually legislated in 1959. Most states still retain that, even my state, and I don't know, maybe our Honorable Chief Justice will tell us. But I think it was still written in 1959, but I beg that it has to be reviewed. Lagos reviewed theirs in 2003 to approximate modern realities. So the theories of forensics is actually a common theory, which sounds to reason that every contact leaves a trace. After step, if you actually examine the body, you see my fingerprints, and you can keep my DNA print. Okay, even on the spine, you decide very well. And this evidence does not hide. It is almost always present. So that it's not found because of lack of our ability to find it, or to analyze it properly, and then put it and get the result from it. So Lucas actually made that, and it was proven that every contact, the microphone I'm holding, already I have my fingerprint. And that's why over 600 criminals who are schooling their criminality. If they come into the interrogation room, if you serve them tea or cigarette, they don't take it. Because until in most crimes, they don't crimes, until you are a fellow, at least one-time fellow, nobody will take your DNA sample without either a court or without your consent. So at that point, where there are enough felons, okay, you need to steal it. Okay? So if you serve them cigarettes or a cup of coffee and all that, they will take it. Because as long as they take it and give it, if they go, somebody picks, analyze it, and if it matches SC, they will go to court immediately, and the court will overnight give them the warrant to have arrest and then continue investigation. So every contact is interesting. And again, keep all sorts of other guys. In this slide, okay, that physical evidence cannot be wrong. It cannot be a job. It cannot lie against itself. It cannot be wholly absent. Oftentimes you have a trace of it. But interpreting can be value. So the value is absolutely just that if we lack the ability to get it or miss it, oftentimes, especially when you attend to crime scene late, that's when you lose it. That's why. So forensic scientists must be able to integrate knowledge, skill in examination analysis, interpretation, reporting, testimonial duties, and duties of evidence to the panels of the court. Since forensics is part of criminal justice system, that means that practitioners must be honest, will have good integrity, and have scientific objectivity, also knowledge to be able to deliver the justice system. Because they need the best. And because somebody's freedom is hanging in the balance, you must actually be frugal in whatever you're doing, and then deliver effective science. Okay? It has been remarkable, there have been remarkable advances in forensic science, transforming investigation through rapid high-tech, and that's where we are going now. High-tech and scientific objectivity are imperatives of today's forensic science. So today, there are several advances, even though Nigeria is tagging along really, we are far behind. As a matter of fact, because of what? Not just equipment, but also training. As a matter of fact, I don't know how much I've been retrained since I left where I was. Okay? I ought to be going to at least one international conference on the short every year. How much do I have? How can I afford it? So I stagger mine, and that is good enough. So, as in other fields, there are new, efficient way and accurate way of doing all things, and there are even new technologies and new ways of doing things. Okay, and that is how it is also in forensic science. That's right. So our duties to the court and to the judicial system is dictation of what? Dictation of evidence, whether positive or even important negatives. There are things we call important negatives. Sometimes they help us in deliberation, which is actually one of the key things that our court wants to deliberate in us. So you get the positive and also the important negatives, which are relevant to the case. Then examination of the relevant direct and indirect evidence, organizing your data and administering it properly, and then analysis of the data, evidence reporting by writing your report, and then expert testimony when you're called to a panel of the court. Other things we do is actually determine the fitness of the evidence, because sometimes when you arrest somebody and start interrogating, you want to know whether the person is fit to give you an interview. Otherwise, you have not gotten a real time. As a matter of fact, overseas sometimes if you take that report and they feel that they find out that the person was disoriented, or insane at the time of the interview, that will be shredded by the court. So you want to know whether the person is fit for interview, either as a witness or even as an accused. So the forensic clinician is whether the person is fit, also to diagnose, determine whether there's sanity or otherwise. And again, we serve advisory duty to the judicial system by way of what we find in the field, and then we can use that to advise. So, violence is one of the key words of today, as defined by law. So, violence is actually intentional physical force or power, actual or threatened against oneself. Violence can be against yourself, self-inflicted injury. Okay? But I think the VAP law was skewed to another. Okay? But remember that if somebody is trying to commit suicide, we are arguing. So, threatened against oneself, another person, or a group, resulting or highly likely to result in injury, death, psychological harm, or deprivation. So, from the for violence is set diverse. It's not just by physical harm, psychological harm. If I burn down this place, I'm not sure if anybody who is considered of this place will be happy. Or if I try in any way to put fuels deliberately in the house, I don't breathe. That's violence. Even though it's not physical attack. Okay? So it can be caused in a diverse way. But the common denominator today is the result and offender. That's right. So I don't have to read everything about VAP law because that's your domain. But let's just take few things, which I'm going to discuss later. Rape. Okay? We'll take it as defined by VAP law. But rape, I mean, not that we're not important before now. Okay? Because I know in Igbo land they are respected. And if you fight a woman, you're in trouble. But the thing is that it's coming into print and into action that women are important. Okay? And that's for several reasons. Because kill all the women, your generation is going to have an nation. But leave one man, you can repopulate the whole city. Isn't it? So far there are women. Okay? But one woman cannot repopulate it. So we need to, even if we kill only one man and kill all the men and because leave only women. Just not the judge. We can be sure to repopulate the state. But without women, we cannot. And that's why women are what's it called? They carry our future, and children are our future. So that's why all the time, even in what I want to save women and children. And if you notice that VAP law, I studied it, even though I'm not a lawyer, I studied it critically. And I found out that in all the other offenses in VAP law, only one does not have an option of fine. That's rape. And it's not like men cannot be raped, but when you say rape in every court, we are talking about actual violation of the law. So in that there's no, and when they keep a register, overseas they keep a register for every felon. And that register helps the law enforcement to take your DNA at will because the court has opened and removed your autonomy. Okay? But that is the only one that the register is kept. Okay? I want to believe that in time, registers will be kept for other serious offenses, like the ones the mass killing that agree. Then physical assault, of course you know that it is actually an offense using force to harm or even threaten somebody. But then the provision of liberty, no, let's get back to that. Like kidnapping or illegal detention, destruction of one's property like we just did earlier, that's right. So threats, whether psychological or cyberbullying and the rest of them, okay? Then forceful eviction from one's house that people say, I throw you out, when you don't have the legal backing to throw your spouse out or your partner, okay? Then financial dependence and all of that. One's social circle. I mean, there's often what we call psychological torture. When a spouse will not allow other people to keep their old friends or make new friends. Sometimes the torture is more than physical. So, and oftentimes, for people that have muscles, when they want to react to that, when after several cumulative punishments, they may do something that is very, very bad, so that you wonder when it started. So there's stalking, looking around somebody and following the person and all of that. So just go ahead. Then administering, like spiking. Let's get back to that. The last one. This is something they do now. Because of the availability of drugs, people go to house parties and they spike their drinks. And then they make them do what they want. That's actually very little. Something very little. I'm sure the legal community will not just charge the person for spiking, but also for what he uses spiking to do, like sexual abuse or doing something that the person will otherwise not do. Next slide. Then, when we want to study violence, we want to now check who are the people at risk and who are the potential perpetrators and what is the setting. So that, because we don't just want to try to adjudicate, we also want to prevent. Because I tell you that in good legal systems, when they prevent, it is cheaper for the justice system. Alright? That's why they investigate and lock up people who are real offenders, recidivists. So, violence occurs in diverse, sometimes overlapping public sectors. In a private or public space. So, vulnerability to violence is often associated with power differential. Either that I'm a lecturer, or you're a chicken colleague in the office, or probably that I have more muscle than you have. I'm a minor, I know better than you, I'm more than free. There's some power differential. Oftentimes the offender is at a higher pedestal. So recognition of the setting and persons at risk of the violence is important in prevention, adjudicating the case, and policy making. Let's go. So who are the what's it called? The potential victims? Gender. Of course, when it comes to muzzle, though a few women can beat us, but again, in general terms, we have more muzzle. They have more brain. What? Well, we have more muzzle than they do. And we are more upright in doing the abnormal. So minors also, people who are of lesser age. Okay? That's why we talk about non-accidental injury in children is a big training load in forensic medicine. So these are defenseless individuals. Okay? I'll come to that. And then child abuse. Theoretically, when we begin to age, we become dependent, and that's why sometimes it's better for the person to overseas to go to the what? Because there's elderly abuse, even in our communities. Neglect. Even when you think you've done so well for your parents and you go and do your own work and all that, and keep like limits for them, they will abuse the man like a child. They won't feed the man, they won't wash the man's clothes, they won't disrespect the man, turn down on him. And the man, once the colossus, will be suffering in silence. Okay? So, hierarchical abuse, as abuse of the old, then lonely people who are lonely are also vulnerable because they need company. And in trying to go, actively search a company, people who know that they are, begging for friendship will often abuse it. And it happens more oftentimes in schools, right? Then young carers, people like ourselves, they are defenseless also. Then junior colleagues in the office, irregular, like I use that carefully. In migration today, we don't call them illegal migrants anymore because that's actually violating them. Because nobody can be illegal on earth. So they are irregular, undocumented migrants. Those people are vulnerable because they are hiding. Oftentimes when they are abused, either law enforcement or other people in the community abuse them. They keep silent because they can't actually outright complain, otherwise they blow their cover. People institutionalize that, people in prison, people in hospital, and then chronically ill patients like HIV and other patients. Persons with physical and mental challenges are often abused. Alcohol and drug dependent, they are addicts. Okay? And then sex workers. Okay? The list can go on and on. Next slide. There are ethical issues in forensics. And those ethical issues is because we want to hold our head high, not just in the public, but also in the court. Because even though the public will not question us, we get to court to be present. So the ethical issues is actually want to serve the public, or majorly to serve the court. Because oftentimes people want to be good in real sense, but people want to also be good, just to what? Dodge from the punishment of hell. And the punishment of hell for us is doing the abnormal in court or the judicial system. So we want to maintain high ethical standard. Forensic practice demands high integrity, objectivity, competence. This is important. Aimed at providing non-biased scientific evidence to the judicial system, regardless of what the fact of the case. We are not advocates. We don't mind, even though we sympathize, inside us that this person may be sent, locked away for life or killed, but we have to be unbiased in doing the science. It is not for us to be empathetic, whether they're going to commute the sentence or not. Deliver the science the way it is, and then help the court make their case. Okay? So this explains the reason for background checks for all the people being admitted into forensic and people who are going to work in forensic. As a matter of fact, I have my 10 fingers as an example. So if I come in here today, they put my finger, they will get it right now. So we go through that, apart from the go to the check. So the basic, of course, the basic ethics, but that will be expanded, is autonomy. You don't want to violate somebody's autonomy. Okay? Even though you're a forensic physician, without a court order, even when there's a court order, if you want to take a blood sample from somebody or rather examine the person, also please can I look at what I'm going to do, then you do that. With the court order, you will do that, or you still have to take permission. But even with court order, the person refuses your permission. You don't force it. You go back to the person who authorized it to the court. They will know what to do. We cannot violate this autonomy. And again, and that's where we talk about informed consent. Even though the person is a non-criminal, you want to collect something, you must tell him why you collected the sample, who authorized you to collect the sample, and what you do is to use the sample. Person must know. Then confidentiality, whatever information you get, would actually be kept secret only for the person authorized it. And you can only violate confidentiality only when public interest overrides the personal interest of the person collecting the sample. Oftentimes we collect it on behalf of what the coroner, the magistrate in our atmosphere. And then beneficence. First of all, the treat. Like sometimes they bring criminals to come to the end, okay, or for us to investigate. First of all, what we are seeing is a patient, not a criminal. The judicial system of the police may say is a criminal, but for us is a patient. So, first of all, even though you want to investigate, they saw him with a gun, what he has moved, you first of all try to treat. Because you may eventually, if you start going forensically, you may eventually have somebody have a lifeless suspect. So you treat while recording your findings and documenting it. So beneficence is very important. Non-maleficent, we don't want to do anything to harm anybody before us, whoever the person is. Whatever race, gender, or even any categorization, so social categorization. And then justice, to tell the public the truth and also to tell the court the truth. So that's a conflict of interest. Obeke gave me a Bible to read, and now you are limiting it. Because I was telling them that it's a large. We went back and forth this topic. I told them that what I'm giving me is what? A workshop. To be delivered in 1 hour. I told them. So, conflict of interest. That is very important. But once you have this problem like this, as a scientist, as a doctor, it's either you recluse yourself, or even if you don't, you must declare your interest. And then stand on justice. But if you cannot, if you think you cannot stand on justice, you recluse yourself. Chain of custody. It is handling material evidence, whether information or data or material or physical evidence from one authorized hand to another authorized hand. And each time you handle, you document it both in time and the person. Because once there's a break in this chain, then you've lost that evidence is that this report. And that means all the effort is what? Wrong. Then bias, you want to avoid both intentional bias, intentional bias, confirmatory bias, and you don't profile people, okay? Then you limit practice to your area of competence. If you remember, Baker was telling me, do digital, I say digital science and computer scientist, okay? That is not my area, okay? Then limit your testimony to inquiries, but if you have to expatiate, you take an excuse from the court and then do so. Let me just give an example about confidentiality and being in line with what you're asking. This is a DNA result from a man was accused of impregnating a daughter. Okay? And the man said, I didn't do that. But I'm sure that my daughter has a boyfriend. And when they tested everything, these things are highlighted. This will be highlighted like this when you're delivering a result. Okay? Especially the one in red. They are not do that. So you find out that in all the matches, in every gene locus, there must be that of a mother and that of what? A father. And DNA, when it comes to positivity, it is done statistically. But the one there's one negative, the person is what is excluded. And you notice that the father of this the girl that is said to be pregnant, here, the baby here, the baby has 16 what? But when it comes to the father that how is it? Look at the father. That's the father that was accused, right? The father that was accused in this locus have 11, 13, but here you have 12, 12. And then the mother that gave birth has 12, that means 12 here. The other 12 must be from the father. And the only person that they match is what? 12. So one 12 was contributed by the God, and another 12 was contributed by what? But this does not exclude the fact that the man may have been abusing the girl. The question I was asking, or we are asking the court, is whether the man is the father of the child. So we give it an answer to it. But we found something else in this. I've seen two of these cases in Nigeria, one abroad. We found out that even the girl that was impregnated is not the daughter of this man. But he then was saying that that was not the question. So that's confidentiality for you. That is when you call. If they find it out and call you back, yes, that's a fresh charge. But if you do that, you are liable. And whatever consequence that comes out of it, you will be there. Next one. So we talk about standard of admissibility. The old one is FRAN, which is whatever is accepted by a scientific committee like us is accepted with the court. But they found out that because of errors in science evidence, they now up the standard by giving us the standard where we have to, there are some indices of test criteria investment. So branches of forensics, there are many. The forensic medicine has about clinical forensics, pathology, radiology, odontology, psychiatry, and then forensic science is diverse from DNA sciences, fingerprints, ballistic testers, all that, anthropology, go to forensic geology, engineering, accounting, and even cybersecurity and all of that. Next slide. So the newer areas, which is actually what is actually involved now is deepfakes forensics. I don't know whether it's true. If you remember during back in that time, Okoji because of it's not like being person was difficult for the forensics to arrest man. So Okoji was popular and was followed by that time. But there was this video that came out there when it was, this social media and all of that was not common then, when Okoji was, videos, named a woman, because they know that side of what really good. But if that was subjected to deep fake forensics, you find out whether it's a fake or AI manipulated or not. Because they look for minute errors, and for the computer scientists know how to do that, and they'll find out whether it's AI or whether it's a real. Then you have microbiome that tests, like if I bite somebody, they can take my microbiome, my flora will be different from another. And they will say, this is peculiar to this man. And then you talk about DNA sequencing, which has started in 1985, but it's only gone more advanced now, all right? Then omics technology, which is actually a micro area beyond the DNA. As a matter of fact, the proteomics and then the genomics, those are things that express our DNA. DNA is just the big man in the room. But eventually it translates to what we call proteomics, and then eventually, that's actually the one that, if it is in disease, that's the one that we express. Okay? What causes our expression is proteomics or DNA sensing disease. Alright? So, even beyond DNA sequencing is gone down to, and then the AI and visual autopsy we're talking about. Okay? AI can reconstruct crime scenes, and then autopsy uses autopsy to see what ordinarily cannot see. And sometimes you may limit your investigation, especially for it. Like now, if someone has a sick, has a stroke, before you even go into an autopsy, you want to do injected dye into the artery and let it just and then take a CT scan. And you're able to catch the stroke is even better than I said. And if the judge or the coroner is satisfied, you will stop the autopsy at that. As long as most like where I train and where I talk about for everybody that comes into the hall, go to the CT scan. And that's when we now decide whether autopsy will be done or not. Otherwise, sometimes we can go that like the hospital and write a report or do report, autopsy. And then here the ventilation for age, we can use that to look out what one is. And then automated fingerprint after Fingerprints is an old technology, but there are more modern ways of doing that now, which a computer, it doesn't now need somebody who is highly trained. Put it in the computer lifts it up and gives you what is a match. And some fingerprints are very unique, whether you are identical to someone, just like your teeth. Teeth, even whether you are identical to it, they are different. But you can have match in DNA of identical twins, except in the face, some environmental things like genetics and DNA for that person. But for fingerprint and cases, I mean, they are unique for every individual. And that's why you have usefulness of forensic pathology, forensics, really for identification. Then bulletproof and bullet comparison. We people compare with ordinary eyes before. Then we now came up to comparing microscopes, and now we have a more AI comparing bullets. I will tell you, even if 2 guns are manufactured today, the same batch, after use of 1 or 2 days, if they shoot, with that you can say we gun that shot. So it's not a question of it was you that shot. It was better. Yeah. Then you have integrated firearm identification. There's also that for fire. Because sometimes people will kill somebody and put set in place and place. If you do fire forensics, you find out whether that is fire was initiated by what, or whether it's accidental, and whether there's a signal to now, just like somebody can take an insurance on somebody and then kill the person. That's why data forensics come, because these cases form together just like a cocktail. You have the digital part going on, like what happens in this country now? I meet you on Facebook. We talk and talk over time, exchange, whatever, and eventually I invite you over, and then there's a court. So while you're doing the physical autopsy and crime investigation, you have to also follow the digital footprint. All that, when you put that together, you'll be able to make an inference. Next one. Then you have alternative for photography and see all wounds that are inside the skin even before it comes out to what? The outside. So that will be used by nurses and all of that. Then facial and stature reconstruction, you can pick a bone and reconstruct and give it a face. That will approximate the face of life. And then blood pattern. Blood pattern is a key area in forensics. Like if somebody is killed here, this pattern here will help him reconstruct the crime scene or whether there's a scuffle. Then trace elements, use of thermometry, and name analysis software used by the accountant to follow the trail of the next step. Injury interpretation is actually what we use in solving our cases in violent crimes. Alright? And that is a core competence of forensic physicians, be them pathologists, clinicians, odontologists, or radiologists. So classification of injury is important. Okay? The relationship, the type, how they are grouped together, all that tells us a story. And then we can use that to make inference of what happened. Anytime we have to consider and report all possible conditions, sometimes we have one cause. But because we are ethically oriented, we don't just name one cause as it was the case. We can mention other alternative causes. Let the judge choose whatever it was. Let's run this. So look at the questions we ask ourselves to help us, dissect the case. What is the characteristics of the group? What force would have been involved? What is the likely offending object? Because that can actually make it. Just like when somebody is drowned, you want to know whether this person drowned before the person entered the water, or whether the person was killed before being thrown into the water. So first of all, you ask yourself, is the person dressed for water? If it's not dressed for water, is there something wrong? Is the person intoxicated? Does the person know how to swim? All those questions then before you now examine the body, you add it to that background questions like this one. And then you get to the background whether it's violence or whether it's what? A force majeure. And that's what we do with injuries too. Next slide. And then in checking the injury, you want to use the words carefully. If you don't want to cover yourself, not to be using except in that if it is fatal, then that means the person was aiming for kill and the person has nothing. If he has potential to be fatal, then the person was aiming for kill, or maybe he did not have it. So the judge will make decisions, of course, on those notes. If that is of evidence. Next slide. Then we don't age, we just give a range. The wound cannot already be A because it's an inexact science. There are several types of wounds, okay? And those wounds have some definite causative, like bruise, which actually a blunt injury, not a sharp injury, and abrasion is a straight injury, and then laceration is a tear caused by one force, and then incision is a big cut caused by a sharp cut like a knife, and then fracture of course that's one and all that. Then penetrating injury is one that was the bone, puncture of bone, but it does not go beyond. Then crush injury is the one that is a heavy force, and then you have lasting injury from explosiveness. You can see these injuries connote causation. They also connote age to certain instruments. Look at these are finger marks on a child that was slapped in school. Sorry that I'm using Caucasian pictures. I have black pictures, but white people show would make it more obvious. And we don't have time to begin to critically analyze it. So I'm using a lighter skin person so that we can easily see what I'm talking about. So look at this child, this lad was slapped in school, and then you can see the finger marks. So even for a lay person, you don't need to be told that this person was slapped. And that you see there are bruise marks from finger marks. Then the same thing happened to that girl there. But you see that one is older. The darker one is older. And you see there's some yellowness there. Because when it's older, it gets darker, it gets oxidized, and then you have the hand loses what? The iron. And if it loses the iron becomes oxidized and it becomes yellow. So it cannot be less than 18 hours. So this can actually corroborate any story that the person was slapped like a day or something like that. And then the other one is a tire mark. You can leave that tire mark and compare it with tire marks of suspected cars. Okay? And then the other one is what we call a tram track or tram line injury. It can only be given by linear objects like a belt, a rod, a pipe, something straight. That's tram line, just like a tram track. Next. Then this laceration. This is caused by a blunt injury causing tear. Rather than incision. You can see that the edges cannot be opposed together. So it's a blunt force on the head. That's an incision, that's an abrasion. Abrasion, you can actually show the directionality of the force. And all this tell the judicial expert fast. And then these are some natural things that can seem like what? Like murder. These are called lightning signs. When somebody is struck by a lightning has a voltage of about 3,000, very high voltage. He kills and he gives this mark. So if you call, people think it's oftentimes when somebody has killed. But I tell you that in 8 out of 10 cases, oftentimes are natural deaths. That's what we saw. There's a great one use. So these are lightning. But this one is a bite mark. A bite mark from a human being. And you can use this and lift it, the teeth set from that place, and then find the person who would be attacked. The other one is a snake bite. So we need to distribution of that because it has fangs. Then gunshot injuries, we'll talk about directionality, entry and exit wound and all of that. Next slide. And that's the exit wound. You see the verb there. Next slide. Stab wounds also. Next slide. Then oftentimes when we do a friend, we take pictures and sometimes videography. We need to comment with paper because sometimes the court tells us which to use, which to present. Even though you present all your sometimes the document and whatever. The one they want you because of how horrible the pictures are, the judge and the public wants you to show that. And diagrams are more easy to understand it. And what is our role is to make the court understand us. It's not about speaking high for English, we speak simple grammar. All the way versus it's not about. So that's actually, we use the diagram to help us illustrate clearly what we need so that the court can actually make good use of our information. And then manner of injury. We deliver information to make the judge deduce the manner. Oftentimes for me, I dodge saying the manner, whether it's murder, whatever, or some homicide, because I don't pronounce my so I give information that will lead the person to conclusion. Okay? So, but again, there are clear signs of self-injury, self-inflicted injury, other forms of assaulted injury, but you must state that clearly so that you can help the judicial system to make decisions. Yes? Then you have common features of self-inflicted injuries, because sometimes people inflict injury. And And these are case studies, okay? With this injury here, if you check the scenario here, the scenario here will give you several different answers. If it's on the back here, the person cannot write more on the back. It's likely an assault. But if it says it's BSF, and the person can do that, person or family that. Okay, so where it is, what side it is, the high will tell you whether it's self-defeated or not. Because, except if somebody is drug affected, you cannot kick your leg without shaking and somebody will need it right. So it's either, maybe if you have a body, so it's either the person is drug affected or the person did what? Him or herself. But if he's behind, it's a back. The person automatically cannot do that. Okay? Assault fatal injury, oftentimes if you are awake, you have to defend yourself. That's so you have to avoid defensive injuries. Next slide. Like this one. This one is somebody guarded the place. Shot a criminal and said, criminal whatever said, assault. And these are injuries represented. So let the court decide whether this was self-inflicted or whether this was indeed an attack by others. No doubt the person was the criminal of his shot. Instead of being an arrested. Okay? And he presented this injury and said it was part of self-defense. You judge and see what I see. So these are defensive injuries, like somebody who is being hit by a hammer. You would automatically or reflexively guard yourself like this. And if you have a fracture like this, we call potential fracture. And that means when you want to, fend off a knife in your hand, then you get your hand cut. That is sexual assault. We all know the meaning of sexual assault. Okay? So let's go on. The myths. What myth I want us to know is that there is frequent lack of injury in sexual assault of adults. And this is a mistake that is done in the court all over the world. I'm not talking about Nigeria alone. And that's why we need constant partnership, being on the same table and discussing this thing. Sex, even by force, oftentimes does not inflict, does not inflict injury on another organ. The injuries we may see as essential injury, maybe the finger man's trying to bite the finger, or leg man's or the single man is trying to restrain over the mouth. But in the genital area, we may not see it. And even when it takes, the person will reflexively stay away to be more comfortable. So, most times we don't have injury sexual assault of adults. And that is one confusion we have with court. So you look for those tiny telltale signs that show that the struggle and the enforcement. And then you now look for confirmation like spend, all that, or the person's finger, whether you can get DNA of the accident. But again, the problem we have, let the court decide, is whether we can decide whether this is what an assault or a sexual offense. It is the arguments. You will need the argument and end the argument. Okay? But if you follow the trail of the evidence we give, you can actually deduce to a very reasonable extent whether it is assaultive or whether it's consensual. And we use diagrams like this because sometimes it's so bad exposing one's sexuality, one's private part of the court, the person, if they violate the person more, and the judge may not want it. Okay? So they look at the pictures at the chamber, but we use this to describe it. Next is a child sexual assault. Of course, the person goes, try to draw the boundary before he gets there. But one thing that we do is when we, oftentimes you see it, not directly, when you are just taking the child and you see his charge and you check his gonorrhea. A child having discharged sexual substance, then there's a tell sign of what. He may be brought by the mother, and the mother will not tell you the truth, but it will be brought up as a humble like assault. So we have mandatory reporting as the law demands of us. So we report. Or if you don't mind, if you see that kind of thing, what you excuse the adult that brought you, and then interrogate the child, and you report to the next officer in charge who will eventually escalate it, and then investigate it. Then autopsy. Autopsy is the gold standard for examination of the dead. And it involves dissection, examination, collecting samples, and observing the microscope. That's the gold standard. But we have our jobs now. Sometimes those items have play better roles, but in most cases, we must rely on this. And the great rate of occurrences now tell you what that cannot be replaced, sincerely. Next slide. the value is like this like this. So forensic radiology. Forensic radiology is virtual examination of the body. And it is in life and death. Okay? Once we do, like somebody has an accident, somebody was assaulted by a gun and all that, somebody was blocked, we use forensic radiology to diagnose what you have to get that out of the report. But when somebody dies also, you can do that. There are sometimes forensic radiology can answer all the questions, but oftentimes it is an adjunct to the autopsy. Like this child, there's this non-accidental injury. In non-accidental injury, you have multiple wounds of different ages, often in one of them. Okay? Sometimes they are fractures, sometimes they are scars and all that. You see them on different planes. Like if you watch closely, let's just take 1 week and get to go through the streets and watch people who are talking to words like another and all of that. If they are not hungry for them, even when they are hungry for them, just take and give them money and give them and give them. You will see such injuries in different places or different ages, people who are assaulted at home. This child has been trucked on the chest and behind the back. These are healing fractures. These are all callous. They are all fracture wounds that are healing. But again, look at another age. This one shiny days a mirror wound. So, why would this child be having fracture all the time? What is the problem? Because he was assaulted at home physically. Right? And often, like for a very short much time, when you turn the hand over time, you have a minor fracture here called bucket and low fracture. These are common wounds you see, but you can see also soft tissue wounds on different places. And then you can now see more that the person needs protection and you report to the social services to protect the child from go home visit for the child and see whether the child is treated for that, whether it's a family. To take the child to the investment. Then this is the case I had when I was in 2006. In a crowded area, a girl coming from home was shot dead. Was shot dead and then eventually police arrested him who was shot down, blew the pellets, and said there were people that killed. Indeed. So they autopsy came and then we were forensic auditors. And then at least there was also that was the police. And then the case I don't know if this is really the police sometimes cases of the United States and this is a body pattern. And no children can be used as body patterns. People will put cocaine in the child because the child was investigated and just clean and the child will not pass the body. So this person packed with narcotics. So radiology detected it, and that's a CT scan around it, and then the person was seen to have a lot of causes. Yes. And this is a traumatic injury CT scan. I don't go through all of that. And this facial reconstruction using anthropology and radiology to reconstruct the face to resolve and give the person a name, because one of our things is to give back the name to the dead. Next one. And as about self-examination, this part. Okay, wonderful. Now, then artificial intelligence. Yeah, that's actually one of the key themes of today. Let's go up a little. Yeah. Okay, the challenges we face. The challenges we face in forensics, and that challenge is transmitted to the court. So when we face challenges, we don't have a training and not have the court. There's a fact that cases are not referred. If you come to the crime scene, police will go there without the one way. Or sometimes the boy will be kept like 2 weeks, 2 years, and all that. That is why when I came back from Australia, I taught the police for 2 years without one to see whether they will improve their investigation. So time is lost, contamination of the casework, and then lack of trust among people who should cooperate, the law enforcement and us. Equipment, lack of training, role of interest groups, like pressure groups, and then even the media that will write the diagnosis and publish it before we finish our work. Okay? Then if you're putting your content, they will say you're lying. CSI effect. The judicial community will watch CSI, and they think that every crime is easily resolved. And they want us to do the same, but we're not us. That one time that we're waiting in court, sometimes they bring us to court, unlike what they don't overseas. They give us our time, they come in the morning, and you stay a whole day, you may not do your case. That no matter how many that they come, and they come to get that actually troubles us. And this ways a lot of people from taking for us the experience. And then funding, remuneration, inadequate knowledge of our colleagues in the medical community, the judicial community, to understand our communication. The other problems, of course, is forensic science method. It's not the fault. Sometimes mistakes are done and you may not diagnose those mistakes. And that's why we're required to do physical science. So, next slide. Yeah, conclusion. So, diverse monitoring techniques have today transformed the courtroom from a system reliant on just oral testimony to that hinged on what's prepared science. The shift offers superior precision in identifying suspects and importantly derating the innocent. Okay? And resolving complex crime, sometimes cold cases that are there over the years, to ensure that the real purpose is set. Okay? The introduction of these modern techniques to the courtroom must be intentionally scrutinized, not just by us, but also by the institutions that are receiving from us. Because you are the person in person, so you must tell us what and regulate us. Okay? So, to ensure that indeed it supports rather than a judicial system or judicial service. Okay? More modern techniques to serve the justice system effectively. Okay? For more modern systems to serve effectively, they must be not merely presented as infallible scientific data, but also comprehensive. The fact that you do a report science without breaking it down and relating it to the court, you haven't done anything. So you must make it comprehensive. Verify components of transparent and robust legal process. Yes. So the methods from the data collection to analysis must be clearly communicated to the court. You when asked in simple, understandable language, including the list of limitations. Any place that your method has limitation, you don't tell them it's 100% infallible. If you have a limitation, you must communicate to the judge. When the judge makes a decision whether you have to discontinue the limitation or not, it is money. If they found out that you have not presented the limitation, that's perjury. Okay? Hence, there is need for continuous legal education. So, furthermore, the power of the new technologies raise critical responsibility to the judicial system so that you make sure that science does not have application of technologies. Like in 2012, okay, Australian law enforcement were chasing cannabis, and people were allowed to manufacture actually that was a concentration cannabis. Science community, because when they saw people they know, and they indicated that this is cannabinoid, but it's not a natural cannabinoid. But legislation will not do anything because we need legislation to be able to bring them justice. So then there comes this important reason, and you remember that legislation is a slow process. So the judicial system must try and catch up and see what was there a new science, a new problem. If we present it, to let us sponsor us to walk through it and then present data for the legal decision. As a matter of fact, where I train and where I work, my service, which is a medical service, is under the road. And that's why I don't like anything there. I go to international conference twice a year, sponsored, and local conference once a year. We're under the corona, and we don't compete with radiology or whatever outside because we have the only medical and scientific community under the corona. So the corona sees us as a very precious child, and they give us what? The seven. So the presenter at this juncture calls for forensic society that includes forensic practitioners, law enforcement, the lawyers, including the bar and the bench. Let us offer come just like they did in the ancient times. Go to morality, go to humanity, reform the society, and discuss this case and be able to help ourselves. There is a way of justice, and also, ensure that we improve our security. So it's important that we have such a society, forensic community. As a matter of fact, where I took like from lawyers, I took 18 credits of law, and under various law courses, come to the forensic unit to spend 6 months with us, not just in theory, but in practical science, so that they understand the service we give them and be able to interpret it. Okay? The data will go a long way to raising the will of the criminal justice system and further improve the national security. Thank you.
Standing ovation for the representative. He has done justice to Mr. Professor, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
One more time, applause for him again. It's been a very nice one this morning. Please sit down. You heard it all from the horse's mouth. You see, one thing is this. Because men are muscularly built, as opposed to women who are said to be the weaker sex, we have wittingly or unwittingly profiled men into the violent one. If you check all the pictures we saw this morning, it was always the men assaulting the women. But there are violent women. Violent women there. When I was in practice, I took one for High Court. I handled the case, the divorce case. As soon as the judge rose and we came outside, this woman menacingly jumped at my client. See wrong. The man was running. At the point he ran around my car. Until I had to intervene to restrain the woman from going to meet this man. Last week, the lawyer came to my office. You know his problem? His wife beat him up. So maybe when we look at the fact law, as time goes on, we need to touch something there. And this thing called DNA, I sometimes get confused about it. When I see a scenario of a man and a woman who never had chance of genital communion, you know what I mean? And there's a, okay, about 2 years ago, I was in Rwanda, Kigali. In the hotel where I stayed, I came down in the morning for the complimentary breakfast. While I was, my food had gone like halfway. This young couple came into the hotel with a boy that would be like 9, 10, or 11 years old. The boy was looking like me. Looking like me from head to toe. I said, yeah. Honestly, I started shaking. The dentition, big head. Name it. Look at let me show you. At the stage, the mother looked at me and looked at me again. I said, drop it. You know what I did? I rushed my food. I left before the man would look at me. Well, let's see who I take over and come in front of us. I need you to imagine the rest. This was not Nigeria, Kigali. So, my hand nickname.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for me. While the lecture was ongoing, some personalities walked in. Honorable Justice CBC Ezu, you're welcome. Honorable Justice CC and PhD, you're welcome. Mr. Ikazo Akarewe, SAN, sir, you're welcome. Professor Foluke Nadamawansi, FICFC, you're welcome. Mr. Latif Omoyeni Akonkwe, SAN, sir, you're welcome. Learned magistrates present, you're welcome, Your Worship. I want to particularly call the name of Magistrate Ifeoma Mawara. She was a one-time state coordinator of African Women Lawyers Association. Augustine Mabwezi, you're welcome, sir. The Commissioner of Police, Mama Beatrice, you are ably represented by CSP Joy Okebubo. You're welcome. Barrister C in the short, so you're welcome. Barrister Amaka Lume PhD, you're welcome. Chief Joseph Ago, so you're welcome. So at this point, we are going to be stepping into the panel session, and I'll be handing over the microphone to the moderator of the panel session, Mrs. Chi Grace Obeki. Please proceed so that you can connect this session. Thank you very much. Round of applause for her.
Good afternoon, the chairman, learned, eminent jurists, learned silks, benchers, learned colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the session of the panel discussion on leveraging forensics, the autopsy, and electronic evidence for VAP law enforcement. Sorry for that breaking transmission. I'd like to call the members of the panel.
Sure.
First of all, we have the Honorable Justice Annie Comfort, Chinyere Comfort, Justice CCI. PhD, Honorable Justice Comfort Chinyere, and the PhD was born 20th, and all of that and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, please, Honorable Justice CCI, put your hands together. We also have Mr. Latif Omoyemi Akambe, SAN. A round of applause for him, please. We have Mrs. Oyinka Sola Badejo Ogunsoya, SAN. A round of applause. And then, finally, we decided this morning to have a representative of the young lawyers. Everything at the bar these days have the young lawyers in mind. And so we have Barrister Joyce. I was given the name just now. Please put your hands together for Joyce. She's a young lawyer and she'll be at the panel. I like to say that such eminence panel, the only thing that will be more difficult than this will be to get a forensic evidence from the police station. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask leave of our chairman, Honorable Justice G.C. Namani, to please take my seat to moderate this session. With my own seat here, I want to take your leave, ask for your leave to sit down and moderate this session. Thank you. That's a big one. placed in the middle of a judge and a son. So it's a privilege. First of all, I'd like us to kickstart this discussion with, we're looking at leveraging forensic techniques, vitosing, electronic evidence for the enforcement of the VAP Act. A little bit a digression. The difference between what was taught us is that this is now electronic evidence. And that's why he told me that he was not an electronic evidence expert. Now we have brought this in because that's exactly what we will need to present in court as our evidence to be able to prove violence, domestic violence and things like that. I'd like to first of all call on our lead discussant, Mrs. Oyinka Sola Badejo Busoya, to give us like 5 minutes of her take on all of this. Thank you. You have the floor.
The Chairman, Honorable Justice Namani, always a pleasure, sir. I think I've met your Lordship in every single visit, and it's always a pleasure. Distinguished colleagues, learned brothers, Mr. Ikazu Akariwe. Last time I was here at your instance in this very hall. My Lord, Justice Annie, and other judges here present, Chair of the Young Bar, my good friend Mr. V.C. Odo, co-panelists, distinguished colleagues of the Enugu Bar, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me apologize in advance because I have not yet mastered the art of being in two places at the same time. And roundabout now, I'm supposed to be in Onitsha, which, to the best of my knowledge, is at least an hour away. So let me apologize and crave your indulgence to leave as soon as I've made my remarks. I do apologize in advance. It can't be helped. I had to balance competing interests. My Lord, do I have your comment? Thank you very much. Now, thank you, Prof, for the extremely detailed treatise on forensic pathology and all that goes with it. In fact, at a point, I felt that you should have warned us that viewers' discretion is advised, because some of those images were rather squeamish. But at a point in time, I had to remind myself that all this is important so that we can ground why exactly we're here. And from the perspective of an organization like the African Women Lawyers Association, digital technology in the courtroom is not just a question of organization, because it goes directly to the issue of access to justice, professional equity, and the transformation of how we protect the most vulnerable in the society, which is what OLA spends its time doing. The aims and objectives of the organization are to protect the most vulnerable, women and children. Oh, and by the way, just as an aside, my Lord, the Violence Against Persons Act may be skewed towards women, but I think it covers men as well. Isn't that true? So, let me begin by saying that the greatest danger in modern justice is not the absence of laws. As we can see from what we have laws. What it is the gap between the law and the tools that we need to enforce those laws. So we can have all these beautiful laws, but if we don't have the right tools, we can't. We operate in an environment where evidence is digital. We have, even at the most basic form of digital evidence, we have photographs, we have videos. trauma can be recorded in real time, and science is playing an increasingly important role in the determination of outcomes in court. But unfortunately, our courtrooms are still trapped in the past, analog thinking, even though the world has moved on to it. So, one of the issues that this throws up as an access to justice issue is that if you require forensic evidence to prove your case, it still remains the preserve of the wealthy. There is no real opportunity for those who cannot afford those tools to get justice. Take a DNA test, for example. I'm not sure what the cost is, Prof, but I know it's humongous to be able to confirm, for instance, that a person has actually been raped when there was nobody to see it happening. And the difference between a conviction and that person who is not free would be DNA examination of bodily fluids or fingerprints and what have you. And yet, that person, that victim, cannot afford to do the DNA test and put that person in. The challenges of Section 84, for example, which allows the evidence and the admissibility of electronic evidence, is that the strict process that one must follow often eludes all but people who are educated and where a large swath of the society are not able to meet the requirements. So I think that an organization like the MBA, for example, should be able to advocate for a relaxation of the interpretation of Section 84, for example, to include, other forms of electronic evidence that are more accessible to the wider public. Because if that is not done, what we find is that these kinds of provisions just exclude people, become exclusionary. And what was designed to ensure reliability and justice ends up defeating justice because of technical barriers. So we as an organization or as an association should be in the forefront of advocating for how these laws can best serve the purposes for which they were designed. We must move towards a system that prioritizes practicability over formality, where digital evidence is assessed on reliability, its context, and corroboration of evidence that is provided, rather than just certification formalities. Just you have to have a certificate certifying that it came from a particular system and it was generated in the normal course of the use of that machine. Those don't have any real effect or real impact, particularly in the context in which we speak today, which is dealing with offenses against or violence against persons. So all that, beyond the MBA, should be in the forefront for advocating for reforms and practice directions that allow for greater judicial discretion, especially where indigent victims are concerned, so that credible digital evidence is not excluded because of technicalities, because we can't afford for justice to depend on what on only people who can afford forensic.
Thank you so much. And building on that, you spoke about you leaving. So, but maybe before you leave, let us ask this question. You just mentioned how is it we are going to make sure that it's not only those people that have the money that will be able to fund forensic examinations. In Enugu States, we have the Victim Support Fund and the law, the VAP law of Enugu States. How do you think, because most of the time, it looks like a suggestion if the law is not followed through, how would you think that the bar can compel the state to make that victim support form functional?
Well, you know, yes. Ordinarily, where the law compels an action, right? Things like making it mandatory for those bodies that are responsible for those things to perform those acts and order of mandamus, if you like, is, yes, is available. But in reality, we know the truth is that, and perhaps my Lord will bear witness, that courts would be reluctant to compel, you know, this kind of mandamus where budgetary issues arise. So for me, if we are not to end up with just having rights embedded in laws but with no remedies, then perhaps a combination of public interest litigation, right? Sustained advocacy. I think there's many things that advocacy can do, and very little that advocacy cannot achieve. Yes, we can explore and invoke compelling government to fund the fund because it's contained in the law. Does it actually always translate into action in reality? So I think in addition to exploring those options because the law provides for them, we should also be more pragmatic. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is solutions, right? With the combination of public interest litigation with sustained advocacy and pressure, legislative enforcement pressure, we can then ensure that those provisions that are written into law are actually operationalized. But I think compelling on its own is never going to be effective.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me ask Honorable Justice. I'd like to ask, why would you, promote or advise the bar after you've had this kind of forensic exposure, how to now begin to use metadata, timestamps, instead of the traditional way of presenting evidence?
Thank you very much. Well, you caught me before my intervention. That was the answer. The solution is training, getting abreast with the developments, knowing what is IT, how applicable it is when you need to use forensic evidence, by coming to court to present cases without expert evidence where it is required. It will affect the case negatively if you're not able to prove what you should prove in this digital era, especially in the world of AI. Now, for instance, when a lot of pictures are coming out, videos, it's difficult to tell what is real and what is deep fake. Unless you go the extra mile to convince the judge the way you want the judge to reason, by calling expert evidence or by being so learned in it to be able to what and what are the characteristics that distinguish the real from the fake, and so on and so forth. So it's all about education, learning, and being able to get expert witnesses to come to court to testify when you have such issues. Thank you.
I think a follow-up on that. There is mentioned deepfake. And then the deepfake will help you to know which one is AI generated or not. The metadata will also help to distinguish which is AI or not. The timestamps will actually say the exact time that that data was generated, who generated it. So being that those things are already known, and couldn't the bench use judicially notice it through section 1222 of the Evidence Act?
it's not possible for you to say that the court will judicial notice because each case is different from the other. What will be presented to the court in one case will not be exactly what is presented in another case. So there's still need for proof in all those cases. So the confusion will always be there, and the judge may decide either way. If she's not well or he's not well persuaded on the side the lawyer, because you're asking me about the lawyer wants the court to do. So it's still about that expert evidence of the people that know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the end of the day, convictions would come from the bench. And so it's important to make sure that even where we have the forensic, we have the autopsy, we have electronic evidence and all of that, it will still have a meaning in court. So that's why it's important to know at what point or what can maybe convince a judge that I should be able to use this kind of evidence. Assuming an expert digital engineer comes to the court, would it convince a judge to not to use it to convict in matters of domestic violence?
Of course, it will help. You can't compare it to where such evidence was not before the court. We deal on evidence. If an expert comes and establishes what was already being proposed to the court, why not? You balance it to the other one, and the higher one on the scale will win. Thank you.
Okay. Now, building on the judicial foundation my Lord has laid, how do we, this question is for Mr. Kambi SAN, how do we operationalize this in the heat of trial? Should we be advocating for autopsy to become a mandatory neutral witness in VAP cases, especially in cases of deaths, that's VAP-related cases that now lead to death? Should we be advocating for that or to prevent tampering? And how do we protect this against the black box problem when the defense challenges the AI? For instance, she's saying that the sense maybe a professional expert comes in, it will be difficult for the judge to take judicial notice of that particular maybe evidence, forensic metadata or things like that. So, your take on should we, adopt autopsy in VAP-related deaths?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I first of all want to acknowledge the presence of the CK and the Lordships with us today, and all the senior advocates and the members of the panel. The fact that we have those Lordships, the Lordships here shows how much value is placed on a body like Aula. And I know that what Aula is doing is well recognized in the society. Now, to talk about autopsy, we're talking about evidence that is objective, the most objective you can get, and is scientific, and it's real-time evidence, as opposed to other forms of evidence that you have. The law as currently is, even though the Evidence Act, which is the law that prescribes the mode of evidence admitted and accepted in court and how evidence has been taken, doesn't say a particular form that it must be autopsy. It does allow electronic generated evidence. So if we are going to move in that direction, what comes before is the legal framework. We must amend the law to ensure that it then makes it mandatory, because without it being mandatory, there's no amount of advocacy that can make room for that. So So I would say that a body like ours, like the Nigerian Bar Association, need to take the horn by its bull by not just advocating, because there are different types of advocacy, by working together with the legislature and probably even drafting a model law that makes provision for autopsy as a mandatory neutral form of evidence in our laws. When that is there, then the court can then take cognizance of that and say, your proof is not up to what it should be. There's a need for you to bring this, but as we currently, as the law currently is, we don't have that. Is there a need for that? Do you see the value in that? The answer is yes. And cases have shown that, yes, we need to move in that direction. One of the most celebrated cases that I always talk about when it comes to issues of proof, medical proof, autopsy, and all of that is the case of Nafu Rabiu and the States. Very notorious case. That case turned on the report, the medical report. A man and a wife were in the house, they had dinner. The PW2 and they said there was nothing wrong with the wife as at the time the dinner was had. PW4 said he was at the dinner table with them, the wife was joking, they went to bed, and the next morning the wife was dead. And it was only the man and the woman in the house. Autopsy reports were tendered. But you know when you have autopsy reports is not as objective as autopsy. Medical experts were called, each person gave their own findings. Was there asphyxiation? There was also another medical evidence that said, and you know in medical realm, the proof is always been on a reasonable doubt. Once you introduce doubt, then you can't be sure as opposed to what we have right now. But before that, talking about it being mandatory, to take it beyond aspiration, the law has to be amended. Let's, first of all, don't put the cart before the horse. Let's have a legal regime, then we can talk about that.
Thank you very much. He says you think the law must be amended, right? Okay, I think to make it a mandatory subject.
Thank you very much. Well, I think the law as it is now, especially the new Amended Evidence Act 2011, now Amendment Act 2023, I think it has taken care of any need for another amendment as far as electronically generated evidence is concerned. Because there are some new sections there, that accommodates this kind of thing we are talking about, such as a medical electronic evidence. I think this vectors comes under medical electronic evidence. It's specific. The new provision, section 84A, B, C, and D, has added a lot and improved on what we had before. So if you bring a CT scan, MRI, and so on to the court with an expert to explain to the court, of course, if you present such, the judge may not even understand what the pictures are, what they look like. But with an expert to throw more light on that, I think it will be admissible. Nothing under the law will make it not to be admissible as the law is now. But if legislation can maybe go further to explain better and better, it's still okay. But as the law is today, I think we can operate with what we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to go to the young lawyer. I believe that you must have encountered bad cases, violence, sexual, domestic, issues. So what are your experiences, the chain of custody at the police station? What are your practical experiences, with tracking of cases and things like that.
Thank you.
And then, of course, what do you think from the lecture today? How do you think? What do you think could be an improvement with all of that problem?
Okay, I'll start with what I think would be an improvement. I feel like everybody seated in this room is in trouble without even realizing how much trouble that we are in. Last year, there was a picture that circulated online of the Pope, and it raised a lot of concern. It looked very real. And because I'm a media person, I post online. That's my space. And I'll tell you confidently that even with the adjustment of the Evidence Act, we are still in trouble. Because I had to research further and realize that there are softwares like the hash value. The hash value would allow you to check the integrity of a document. We also have things like metadata. Metadata would allow you to identify the origin of a data, a timestamp, and all of that. And I also found about a software referred to as page vault. I feel like the Evidence Act should include this software as a mandatory requirement that every document must pass through before being tendered in court. Because it is not just saying that a document can meet the requirement, but we know that this is fake. How do we prove it? So software like a page vault is designed to make legal practitioners understand the background of a document. Now, in the past 2 months, I am currently doing a program with medical doctors, and I have seen, so I think I'm allowed to say this, we are all adults in this room. I have seen the at least 5 children that have experienced sexual violence and abuse. And I am confidently saying today that those children have never been justice, and it's not even a lie. Because the average Nigerian is so ignorant that you don't even know the first thing to do when an abuse has taken place. You take your child to the hospital because sometimes they come to the hospital and the doctors are tired. They'll be like barristers, we are going to medical department in the police force will be in sync with what they are doing. And the family will tell you, oh, let's leave it for God, we can't bring it out. So what are you supposed to do at that moment? So, and it's so bad that the DNA testing, which is like one of the things that can save, that can give a victim justice, is very expensive. You want to do DNA in Nigeria, at least budget from 300,000 naira and above. And we are talking about indigent Nigerians that if you give 500,000 naira, they're going to close the case. They would not bring out the money for the DNA testing. So, whether we like it or not, our hands are tied on the implementation of these laws. And that is why people are saying that justice is for the rich. And I will not argue that, because the poor person would sell justice for the right price. And when we understand the reality and the climate that we are in Nigeria where everything is monetized, even your freedom of justice, you cannot do anything. And so even if you are saying the judiciary, and I want to add, the NBA is the pressure group of the judiciary. And the sooner we realize that the power of the NBA is much more than we think, the better for all of us. And even if we are closing, even if we decide to pretend that it's not affecting us, I will be here today and somebody will generate an image somewhere that I have committed a crime. And it will be a case of, oh, my word against her. And the evidence, the picture will look very, very real. So I feel like the NBA as a pressure group should, I said, funny enough, I did send a proposed bill to Honorable Erufai for the amendment of Section 84. And I was very emphatic, and I included that they should include the page vault as well as the hash value, because it is one thing for you to write all of those stories. We need to verify, and we also need to have expert evidence. No document should be tendered without an expert witness verifying the authenticity of that document. so that our judges will not be misled. Our judges are not trained forensic experts, whether we like it or not. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I just want to add that I do agree with my lord that Security 4 takes care of it already. But to the extent that you want to make it mandatory, that's the point I'm making. You want to take everything mandatory, the law must provide that it's mandatory. Also the VAP law also has to be amended to make it mandatory. Because right now it doesn't make it mandatory. That's the point.
Do you mind if I just piggyback on what you said? Thank you very much. So, thank you very much for your intervention. But I think that's the beauty of an adversarial system also. Because such evidence may get in, but the job of the defense counsel is then to ensure that he challenges that evidence with all these tools that are available. Yes, we can't legislate every possible scenario to go. I think what a law should do, and so far does, although there's always room for improvement, is provide a framework. And like my lord said, we have provision in our Evidence Act that allows for the admissibility of electronically generated evidence. Now, society is moving faster than the laws can catch up with it. That is a given, right? And that is where judicial interpretation and judicial activism comes in, because we do need more courageous, judging.
Thank you.
More expansive interpretation.
We do need more courageous judges. And that's why we
Judging. Not judges. Judging.
I think we need more courageous judging. We also need more courageous judges. And I think that we have them here. Going forward, now we have had the practical things. In section 1.4 of the VAP law, there is a need to register a national register of offenders. I don't know that is practical here in Enugu State, but there's a problem with that. In fact, in so many states in Nigeria, it is just on paper. The Lagos State, some bits of Edo, Kaduna State, Ekiti State, I think just 4 of them are actively, having those records. Even doing that, there arises a problem. Because when you name and shame that offender, the victim. What about the victim? Because most of the time, domestic violence cases, usually the uncle, the father, and all of that. So the victim, the addresses are known. How would that victim be protected? We have, forensic means of doing that. Deduction, where they can block the victim's name. In practice, why won't we have that register operational here?
I don't think I should be the person to answer this. Yes, because it should be the Attorney General who has the full picture of the criminal prosecutions that should, initiate that. Yes. So I don't, but I think WACO is also working towards that direction. WACO is the NGO that's at the forefront of protecting the rights of victims of VAP law, victims of offenses under the VAP law, and champion the enactment of the VAP law in the state. I think WACO is working towards that.
Thank you. To the next field, even with forensic cases, often there's poor handling of prosecution, even with forensics. Okay, so should the MBA advocate for VAP cases to be exclusively prosecuted by specialized lawyers? And then the follow-up, should the MBA advocate for VAP cases to have their own courts? Or shouldn't the MBA advocate that VAP cases should have their own courts? Today we have the FCC, and then doing something that the police usually do. Could that MBA advocate for such a thing?
Thank you very much. Let me answer that last question first, because you've touched on something that that is of great concern to me. You see, we cannot continue to have proliferation of courts, specialized courts, or proliferation of agencies. It's a failure of institutions. What we need to do is strengthen the institutions that are created to deal with those issues. For instance, I don't believe in the FCC. I don't believe in the FCC at all. I believe it's a good idea, poorly implemented, and has now become, to all intents and purposes, an agency of intimidation and harassment and all other negative words that you can think of. It's populated by police officers. What we ought to be doing is have your economic and financial crimes unit within the police force. By the way, I think the police force should be called the police service. Maybe then they will really become our friends. But that's a different conversation. But EFCC and other such specialized things should be within the institution of the police. Now, bringing it back home to what we're talking about here. You know, there's a program that I like to watch on TV, Law and Order, Special Victims Unit. That Special Victims Unit deals with sexually based offenses, and it is within the New York Police Department. It's all fictional, of course, but guess what? It actually exists. I went to New York one day and I walked past the building and it had on it NYPD Special Victims Unit. That's what should happen. We don't need specialized courts for offenses against the person or for domestic violence offenses. No. What we need to do is to strengthen the mechanisms that deal with it. So yes, I agree that we should train people specially to deal with those kinds of offenses. Oh yes, that should happen, but not to have a proliferation.
Not to have suicide laws. Thank you so much. I'd like to come to Honorable Justice. I want to have your final take on all of this.
Thank you very much. Let me first start with what the legacy just said. And I think I agree with her that there's no need to proliferate the courts. After all, in some jurisdictions, courts are already divided according to their specialty. There are criminal division and so on. So where such is the case, what stops the criminal division from handling cases involving violence against whoever? It still falls within the criminal domain instead of going all out to get new courts with the limited number of judges that are already struggling to man what they are manning now. So in all this, I think this is a very good topic to discuss in our world today, where IT, artificial intelligence, now holds sway, where images can be created, as my co-discussant here said. Somebody could be somewhere and images of that person is being produced and circulated everywhere. And I'm also particularly happy about this new cybercrime law. Because you could be where you are and somebody is busy libeling you through the internet, producing fake videos and fake anything they can. That cybercrime also helps to checkmate what we are into today. So I think this is a very good idea because it's also very important, as we are discussing here, to know how to distinguish the fake from the real, so that we don't end up having wrongful convictions. Because these are the dangers that we can, get involved in if we don't distinguish. And it also brings us to the importance of even the judges getting trained to an extent. It's very important. To an extent on what maybe not as experts, at least to have some fair idea of what all these AI generated and manipulated evidence is all about. And I also agree in a way that there is need to have an extra in terms of regulation for all these evidence that is coming up. And fine, section 84 is there, and the nitty-gritty, like what the other panelists here was saying, metadata, to add it to what evidence has to go through so that it becomes part of the law that the judges will have to check when they encounter such evidence. Now, it's also important to corroborate, not to underplay the need for corroboration, so that we don't just deal with that evidence if we are suspecting that this may be fake or something like that. There is need for corroboration. Just like in the SY regime, where confessional statements had to pass through some tests and so on, even though that's no longer the case with the new law that you have to have the computer-generated evidence of that confession and other things set up to checkmate the use of involuntary confession. But even at that, you find that even though it is not being implemented most times, but this is going to still be a threat. All this deep fake is still going to be a threat to that particular law that electronic evidence has to be generated to show that somebody has confessed to a crime. Supposing a desperate prosecutor or desperate IPO generates an evidence of somebody making a confession and is in compliance with our own section 17 of our Administration of Criminal Justice Law, how will that play out? What will we run to? So I think, as the other panelists said, we are in real trouble if something drastic is not done and done very urgently. I thank you all for listening, and I thank the organizers for inviting me to speak at this very important occasion. I also thank the paper presenter, the lead presenter, the prof. You were very detailed. Thank you for the very well presented and well researched presentation. And also to my fellow panelists, thank you for your very robust interventions. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your final word, Mr. Akambi said, I'd like to know what you think the bar can do to advance the enforcement and of the VAP, especially convictions. They go to court, they settle out of court and things like that. How is it going to be possible that we can have things like digital injunctions and to stop such things? And then your final word.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very you remember one of the favorite quotes that you get in law, being one of the when it says that the law cannot afford what's the attitude of the time that has not been done before. If something is not done because it's not been done before, what happens? Society will move and law will remain static. And we can't afford to have that. This whole conversation is about it's all well and good to have the laws. And we have those laws, like I say, that our problem in this society has never been for the adequacy of our law. VAP law is to securing conviction, which is what Vetopsy AI would assist you to achieve. So the need to have introduced this into the law cannot be overemphasized. It is very necessary we need to do this and bring it on board. Now, advocacy to have this, I say that advocacy, there's a difference between advocacy and aspiration. Advocacy is aspiration when you talk about these things without enforcement and sanctions and taking actions, it becomes just aspirational. Now, what do we need to do? We need to take more steps. A body like NBA has different sections. We have the SBL, we have the SPDL. SPDL in particular is a body set up for special public interest, section of public interest and developmental law. That is a section involved in advocacy, ensuring that the right amount of law is being passed, working with the state and national assembly to make sure we have the appropriate law. When you see a vacuum, the body like the SPDL should step in to close the vacuum. We're talking about having a database, for instance, and across board. Data, for instance, is a matter that is not on the exclusive list. It's for the states. So each state can say, I'm not going to share my data with another state. But a body like the NBA can advocate, use good national assembly, drafting a model law for all the states to adopt, where they can all collaborate together and exchange this database that they have between themselves. Talking about mandatory neutral Vetopsy. There are states where they want to even have CT scans. How do you make that in the Vetopsy mandatory without having the right of advocacy to ensure that these things are on board all states have this? You just find that there is so much lacuna in the law. But having a conversation by Aula, I think it's very timely. We need to sensitize, create awareness, let people know the current trends and how to keep up with the current trends. Talking about Lagos State has gone very far in gender-based violence. I don't agree that in proliferation of courts. But in Lagos, we do have special courts for gender-based offenses in the High Court, in the Magistrate Court, and that cases move faster because in our client, we cannot ignore the fact that cases don't move fast. So if we say these cases have been created, these courts have been created, special courts for EFCC and all of that, it's just to be able to ensure that these cases move fast enough. If you were in a place where cases move fast enough, you would need that. But in Lagos, they realize the fact that these cases need to be prosecuted tirelessly, and courts are congested, and those special courts are created. So, for instance, if we know our local situation, cases don't move fast, what is the essence of having all these people being tried and they can delay the process and all of that? So, if we need to take into consideration our local situation, if with me, in Enugu State, for instance, the cases move fast enough, I would imagine having a special court in the place like Sokoto, when sometimes on a busy day, there are 5 or 6 cases on the court system. In Lagos, sometimes there was 2 cases. So you don't create something like this. I don't know the dockets in the Enugu State, but everything must be on its own peculiar circumstance or need and all of that. But this gender-based violence is something that should be at the forefront of every executive, because law and order in society is the essence of a society. So I would say, I close by saying that the NBA SPDL has to be a lot more. They have to work with bodies like Aula and FIDA. Because these 2 bodies are bodies at the vanguard of fighting gender-based violence. Women Forum, which do a lot more. I haven't heard of Women Forum within the NBA doing any prosecution. I haven't heard of any before. Like we hear from Aula and FIDA. We need to work together with them, and that's how we can keep our society safe and the streets safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That's been a nice one. We are going to stop at this point.
I thought you wanted a final word.
Okay, very good. Let's start that.
Just so that just wrap it up. So, just to piggyback on what everyone else has said, I think that we shouldn't leave here this afternoon, all our members, without remembering and being re-energized to do that which Ola proposes to do, is aims and objective. Ola has done a lot of work in achieving broader access to justice for women and the more vulnerable in society. And having discussions like this about the use of technology, about how technology can improve the prosecution and eventual punishment of offenders of violence against persons is an excellent step in the right direction. I would just like to say that we need to deepen the advocacy for the victims, for the society, because we are limited by many cultural barriers. People don't want to report things, people don't trust the system. So Ola has a role to play in ensuring that the people who will benefit from the technology, from the move in the right direction towards things like virtopsy, towards electronically generated medical evidence to help prove cases against them, that they're not going to be victimized, that they're not going to be shamed and have the stigma on them all their life, and all the things that are peculiar to our environment, because otherwise we just end up winking in the dark. We are pursuing all this technology, we are pursuing all these modern trends, but the people for whom these achievements are being pursued are not being carried along, and so they don't understand the value that is added to them. So I'll just enjoin us all. Ola Enugu State has been in the forefront of promoting the ideals of Ola, and I'll ask you to continue to be a shining example to relevant conversations like this to the fore, to deepen the knowledge of rights that citizens are less able to understand and rights have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to conclude on this note. Justice delayed is victim betrayed, and offenders hidden is a society in danger. So if I was a victim of a sexual offense and a matter is lingering for 10 years, I might as well sell it and get compensated for it. I feel like we need more judges. I don't think I want to be a judge, because if 40 matters on the court list, I'm already traumatized. And the truth is that they will not give their due diligence to the entire cases, whether we like it or not. It's too much for one person. If they will not say it, me, I will say it. Because from morning to night, the judge will be seated and is attending to 40 cases, and you want that particular judge to listen to the entire story. It's not possible. We need more judges, and we need a list where we can access the database of offenders, so that we can protect our children from living with offenders. We don't know who these people are, so we need to know who they are. There's no need to hide it. They are offenders, and that they are offenders. Thank you very much.
It's now time for the Q&A. I've got a question here. That question, I think, is supposed to be answered by the Commissioner of Police, who is really represented here. Because the person is saying that VAP law is an offense against the state. So why is the state not funding those forensics? I don't think any of us here is representing the state, so maybe the commissioner's representative will answer that. But ladies and gentlemen, this is time for the Q&A. Anybody can ask any question. We have just 5 minutes for that. You have a question? Just 2 minutes. And if we're not having any question, any other question? Your comment, okay? Question, just questions. There's no time for comments here, just question. And that means we don't have any question. Having said that, we're rounding off with this, that we know that VAP law should be specialized, VAP law should be funded, and VAP law should be digitized. With that, we wrap up this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for these panelists. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you so much to all the discussants for their valuable contribution. Thank you so much, Mrs. Opeke, for moderating this session. At this point, I will be calling on the Commissioner of Police for her comments. Also want to announce that there is a QR code at the back to register through that code now. It's at the back page of the brochure. And if you don't have the brochure, it's on the agenda paper. Register now so you can get your certificates at the end of the program.
Good afternoon to everybody. My name is CSP Joy Onyedikachu. I am representing the Commissioner of Police, Enugu State Command, in the person of CP Beatrice Mama. On behalf of the Commissioner of Police, I am happy to be here in this meeting, and I think through this period, for the past 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be talking on VAP law, and we'll be meeting here. Like I told you the last time, we have started using the VAP law, and we are going to continue using it, and we are also bringing it to the African Women Lawyers Association, the Enugu State Charter, that they should come up and support our victims. They should come up and support our victims because most of these vulnerables are actually helpless. Nobody to support, nobody to help them. Even for the medical examination, it's difficult for them to go. Then we are not talking of forensic tests here. We are pleading that the Enugu State Chapter should come up and support our victims. For we, the police in Enugu State Command, we are ready to work with you. We are ready to partner with you. And we are ready to train most of our police officers to be able to use the VAP law and the forensic evidence to do most of their cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, CSP, for that wonderful remark. Please, I'll be calling on the Nigerian Bar Association, Enugu branch, Chairperson of the Nigerian Bar Association. What's
Thank you, everybody. I'm just hoping to start running because I'm going to Nisla and from there we go to next meeting in Oka. Please, I want to thank the. No, I don't want to say the subject. The kind of thing they do to sugar meat, and they were not able to stomach it. So, this national autopsy, how can it be made to relieve that kind of experience? So that instead of cutting people to pieces like that, it can solve the problem. That's number one. Then, one of the guests, the discussants, the young lawyer, said that we are in trouble because of electronic evidence and how to interrogate or determine the authenticity. I don't think we are in that level of trouble. We may be in trouble, but it is a trouble that I believe that has solution. somehow. The reason why I'm saying this is because the judges, the judges, they have amplitude of discretion to decide when they matter before them. So if any evidence is laid before you and you are not satisfied, if then you still entertain some doubt, so I don't believe. That makes it. Let's not create panic that does not exist, because that is why the judge is there. If he has that, you say, I have what I want and admit this evidence. And the judge will discredit it. Number 3 is that I believe that the election we gave us is so initial and so critical to criminal justice delivery that we should make it a significant part of our continuing legal education scheme, so that lawyers will get educated, not just lawyers, judges, about how to make sure that the evidence we present is accurate enough to guarantee conviction. Look at the case of former governor of Delta State, Ibori had, in one incident, they generated the police, Nigerian police investigated. They went to court, they got 3 days away because he could not believe it. But the same moment, the same scene, the Metropolitan Police had their own evidence. The moment he was confronted with it, he pleaded it, and he was sent to prison. What is makes the difference? Investigation. And the accuracy of this investigation can be guaranteed by what we talked about. So I rest my case here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chairman. A round of applause for him. I'll be calling on the representative of the Honorable Attorney General to come and give a comment. Thank you so much. Lord, the Chairman of this commission, our Justice Chairman, Lord, welcome to this. Lord, welcome to this important gathering. Leonard is here and you're welcome. Lord, welcome once more to this important gathering. What I will add to everything that has been said here today is that definitely judges want to on what we say, what evidence and most of the evidence we need, especially as regards back law, is documented and forensic evidence. The young lawyer said one can sell his freedom or have freedom or access to justice because the person does not have money to do this forensic evidence, and it becomes an issue. And once it doesn't come to us, the judge does not say anything that she is working with. Now, my appeal. In law, lawyers will have legal aids. We have lawyers. We have CIJA. We have people that pick up cases that are very genuine, but there is no money to finance it. And I ask, Prof, is there anywhere in your own association that you can really establish something like this, our service, so that when you see a very genuine case, but there is no fund to fund the forensic aspect of it, you can do it for justice. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that wonderful explanation. Thank you. I'll be calling on Leonard for his comments. You're welcome, sir. A round of applause for him.
My lords, my many friends, the theme of this lecture is digital technology in the courtroom. That's the theme. Well, the topic specifically is leveraging on forensic techniques and autopsy to meet legal, ethical, and practical demands of modern court rule, a focus on verb law. Now, I just want to say, first things first. First things first. And the first thing is digital technology in the courtroom. Do we have digital technology in the courtroom? To the best of my knowledge, we do not have. Maybe in the Federal High Court. Our judges still record longhand. We sit in the court and judges are recording longhand, and that is one of the reasons for protracted hearing of matters in court. Longhand. The young lawyer said if she came to court as a judge and there were 40 cases, she would be traumatized. And she has a point. How do the judges survive? So the first thing we should do, and I love the lecture. I thank you, Professor Yuriki, for the lecture. It's enlightening. I learned a whole lot of new things. But the first thing we need to do, or as we begin to get used to forensic technologies, the first thing is to digitalize court proceedings. Our judges must stop recording longer. I enjoy being in the Federal High Court these days because the judge is unrelaxed. The state high courts recording longhand, most of the courts, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court. Very interestingly, I did two cases before the IST. What does IST stand for now? Investment and Security Tribunal. Investment and Security Tribunal is not a superior court of record. It's an inferior court of record. Because there's one lawyer and a whole lot of non-lawyers sitting on the panel. But interesting, very interesting. Everything we did was recorded. To digitalize 12 years ago. And when we get certified through copies of documents, we got them the following day. So I think that this is the primary thing that should concern us while we pursue this leveraging of forensic techniques and methods. The courts need to be digitalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A round of applause for him. Okay, please, at this point, I'll be calling on the chairman of this occasion for his closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please, round of applause for all the participants, the very erudite lecturer, the moderator, the panelists, the chairman, yes, the chairman. Thank you. Well, I think it's so the message is clear. There's work to be done. To carry the hewers of wood, the drawers of water along in the digital process. So that they become beneficiaries of what they know. The stage in law is attending now. Thank you very much. We thank Allah for the wonderful program. Next year, call us again. We'll be here again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much, sir. I'll be calling on Sylvia Abana for the vote of thanks. Sylvia Abana. Sylvia, where are you, please?
Yes.
A round of applause for her. Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, please, I plead to stand on already established protocol. Please, because I don't want to miss anybody. So, today is a very great day. It's an epoch-making event. I'm thanking everybody here for making out time. Honorable judges of the High Court, learned magistrates, learned fields, our NBA presidential candidates, chairman of different branches of NPA, and the respected facilitators, and the guests as well. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the enlightening lecture in digital technology in the country, leveraging forensic technique and autopsy to meet legal, ethical, and practical demands with a focus on the VAP Act. You know, VAP Act is very large, comprehensive, and all-encompassing. So it needs a lot for it to be implemented. And since we are already in a digital era, we need to get ready for that. Because a lot of victims of VAP will benefit from this technological aspect of it. Then the session is very timely and quite engaging. This session is actually thought-provoking. So we are calling on each and every one of us to start thinking differently, because after all these enlightenment on the presentation of this topic, I think there will be a paradigm shift for us. We need to change the narrative, because if implemented, victims are going to benefit a lot. The issue of speedy trial, no more delays, you can access, judgment from anywhere, even from the remote areas, because with the technology, it's now global. Not minding the challenges, and I think when I say, now they where along, we have to start implementing it first, doing the ones we can do first, then trying to find a way of, navigating around the challenges. So I'm thanking each and every one of us. I appreciate all the distinguished guests, especially our facilitator, for the thoughtful, words, thoughtful lectures. It's quite informed. We've been informed already, and we also know about the challenges. Like I said, we need to have a rethink. An issue of approaching evidence, the victim protection and the protection orders in this digital area. I also want to thank the CJ for making this hall available to us, because assuming we didn't have this hall to us, it would have been a very big, hurdle for us to cross. But he made it a soft landing. He gave us a soft landing, and that is why we are here. I also want to thank the organizers of this event, African Women Lawyers Association, especially my chairperson, Ngozi Abafor Enisiobi, and our project chairman, Chidi Obeke, and all the outlines as well. Then country level, our legal chair, who also gave us a soft landing on our light refreshment. I wish to thank the League of Women Voters of Nigeria as well. I think they are the only organization here present. They came as a group. Then the NBA, for all of you being here. I don't want to miss anybody. I'm thanking each and every one of us, because if I start calling by names, then there will be a problem. But even if I don't mention your name, know that I appreciate you, that we appreciate you. I will appreciate you. We have this appreciation from the bottom of our hearts for leaving everything you were supposed to do and coming here. I also appreciate the Commissioner of Police and the representatives. Everybody, we appreciate you a lot. We are very, very grateful that you are here. Thank you so much. Sorry, I think I'm missing out the Honorable Attorney General, the representative. That's why I said I wouldn't call names. Please just know that we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
A round of applause for the Sylvia Abana, who just gave us a very comprehensive vote of thanks. Please, I wish to recognize the presence of Mr. Gozie Iwala. Mr. Gozie, please, a wave of hand wherever you are. Mr. Gozie Iwala, our incoming. I also want to recognize the presence of Mrs. Uloma Amigo. PhD. Mrs. Uloma, welcome. Please, everybody is very important. You're all welcome. And this point, we are going to say the closing prayer, and I'll be handing over the microphone to the representative of the Honorable Attorney General. Shall we pray? Our prayer is in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Eternal reality, we thank you for his successful servant. Thank you, Lord, for all the opinions, all the views, all the discussions that we got today. Lord, may you help us to implement them in Jesus' name. As we step out here, Lord, lead us safely to our final destination. So we pray like this of the name. Right now, in Jesus' name we pray. Thank you everybody for your time. I believe we are better